Hey guys, welcome back to Fright Flicks. I'm Mike.
And I'm Nate.
On this episode, we're going into the new Guillermo, am I saying that correctly?
Guillermo,
of course. Guillermo Del Toro's new Gothic Romance is what it's being called, which is definitely more apt than horror movie.
It's being called that by people who have seen it pretty much for the entire year up until this movie's release. It was being pushed as a horror movie. I know that's not the fault of the director, it's the studio, but if you don't watch this movie as a horror movie, if you watch it like something you would see on PBS Mystery, an intense gothic thriller with some horror elements to it, I think you're going to enjoy it a lot more. But yeah, Gothic Romance is a good way to describe it more than a horror film.
My experience with it was Guillermo Del Toro was on Twitter. He started up his Twitter account right before it came out, and he said that it was, I just want to warn you guys, this is a Gothic romance. It's not a horror movie. So I knew that going in, and I had heard of just a few reviews, but I tend to stay away from other people's reviews. So I kind of knew that going in. Did you think it was?
I had heard that as well,
right,
but it didn't bother me at all because I don't know how somebody would have described Pan's Labyrinth to me if they had seen it before I did. It's a hard movie to describe. Yeah, that's definitely not horror, not sci-fi. I guess it's fantasy. It's really dark. It's also a super, drama. So
an adult fairy tale, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah. So hearing that this was a Gothic romance type of deal,
that's the perfect way to describe this one.
Didn't throw me off because I'm like, it's Del Toro. This guy can work magic.
So what did you think, as it was getting rolling?
Well, actually, I can sum it up super concisely, and then I'll expand on it. But if I had a 2-word review, I thought about writing a review, and I came up with 2 words.
Okay.
Beautiful snooze fest.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
It showed, once again, why Del Toro is, I think, one of the best directors out there in terms of using film as a visual medium. The guy he creates moving works of art. It's incredible.
Very true.
And he brings that in spades. However, this was almost 2.5 hours long, and it felt every minute of it.
Oh, really? I watch movies with the counter on, and it was before credits. It was an hour and I believe 53 minutes. So it felt like 2.5 hours.
It felt like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it kind of feels like 2 separate movies.
Yeah, it was just, and it doesn't bother me. I sort of like that it was a straightforward movie that never tried to pull the rug out from under you.
Sure, I like that too.
So I wouldn't call it predictable because it is what it is. It's not trying to trick anybody.
Right.
It's this traditional story, and you know where it's going. So there's a lot to look at, but knowing where it's going is a little slow moving.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's, again, something to point out, is that if you go into this thinking that there's a bigger story or a bigger twist or something,
like a third act payoff that's going to knock your socks off, no, not really.
Yeah. Although I did think that its third act, its last 15 minutes or whatever, were pretty cool. But I mean, the major twist, I guess you could say, is what you think it is. 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're not giving anything away by saying that it's a twist that happens, whatever. But I mean, every story has twists and turns.
Right.
You know where
You know what? It's more of a plot development than a
exactly.
twist. You know?
I like that you say that, and that's what I meant to call it.
Yeah, definitely. A twist is when they're trying to surprise you. And they do throw in a lot of jump scares. They want to surprise you with the jump scares, but they're not trying to sixth sense you and throw you off with, like, a plot twist. The plot just unfolds slowly, but in its own due course.
Yeah, and I think what ended up happening with me is I kind of anticipated not liking it so much.
Right.
And
me too.
Yeah, so honestly. I just kind of, sat back and didn't really care for the horror and didn't expect much from it. And I even got less than I expected from it.
Yeah.
I think there's 2, maybe 3 ghosts or whatever in the whole movie
that put in little appearances.
Yeah. I really, of course, like Pan's Labyrinth. I mean, that's undebatable, but Devil's Backbone is also a very good movie.
Very good movie.
Yeah. If you haven't seen that. And all I could think during this movie is that it also, I finished it, and I think I didn't say to Dylan because something made me hold back. But I almost said to my little brother, I was like, yeah, so I finally finished, because it took me 2 sittings, only because I watch while I have the time. I watched it in 2 sittings, and I'm like, oh, so I finally finished the Guillermo Del Toro movie. Pretty lame. But I was like, no, I'm not going to say that. Because,
right.
And I double featured this basically with Goosebumps, which I would actually recommend if you can, because it's kind of the separate thing where Goosebumps is a lot of fun, but it's not really going to stick with you. Although I would watch it again. This was a movie that, like, you know, time went on. It, like, never really went away. Mm-hmm. And I have watched bits and pieces of it twice already. Because there's some stuff, you know, like the whatever, that I just had to see how those tricks were done. You know what I mean? And he uses practicals and visual effects. And they're just some really stunning fucking images.
Absolutely. When the movie is at its slowest, there's still so much to look at in the background.
Mm. Oh, well, that was actually one of the things, is the first 35 minutes, I think it is, before they even get to Crimson Peak, and it's totally a romance mystery, you know? Mm-hmm. I really didn't like it. Oh. I was like, oh, fuck you then.
Well, it takes a long time to get where it's going, and when it gets where it's going, it doesn't pick up the pace at all.
That's true. That's
you know? It is very deliberate. I mean, I thought about it for a couple of days, and that's the best way to describe it, is the people that are going to like this movie the most are the people that watch, like, PBS mysteries from the BBC starring Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. Those sort of mysteries that are very, very deliberately paced, and there aren't surprises.
It's all about aesthetics and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, once you get that idea in your head, which I did probably about halfway through or by the end in the next day, totally sank in what I had watched. And I had to really give him, like, I started liking it more and more, and I like it more and more. One, we don't typically get things like this. It was the same thing I was going to say about Knock Knock, which I never reviewed, is that if Knock Knock would have been in Spanish, people would not have hated it, other than Keanu Reeves' performance, but maybe I'll do a review of that one day. Oh my God, one of the worst performances ever. But if this was in Spanish, like The Devil's Backbone, and didn't have Hollywood stars, so because it even tricks my own mind, who's seen plenty of foreign films, it tricks your mind into thinking you're going to get more like an engine-driven type thing. And it is very casual. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that. And what I also noticed is it reminds me of the old Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe stuff. Definitely. It reminds me of Mario Bava. Holy shit, giallos. Like, there's a lot of that stuff in there. Oh, well, if somebody would have told me that I was going to see Guillermo Del Toro doing a Mario Bava movie from the 60s.
Right, or like a Hammer film.
Yeah, and I would have gotten what I expected. Yeah. So I've grown to really appreciate this movie, and there is stuff, like I said, that made me roll my eyes the first time because I wasn't acclimatized to it. Lines that are like overly poetic and stuff.
Very
but
much so.
It's good, it works.
Yeah.
Like, it's a certain quality that if it was the 60s and it was Mario Bava, I would have called this a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
Just one of those things. And you'll watch this and you won't forget it and you won't totally regret it by the end, because it does pick up towards the end with some, like, pretty freaky moments of, like, brutal violence that kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, they do. And I don't know. There were a couple of moments of it was sort of a tonal discord because it was such a. I
was like, oh well, my grandma can't watch this one anymore.
Up until a certain point, for the most part, it's a pretty soft movie, and then there are some really hard edges that jump out with some violence.
Yeah,
not a lot of them. Gorehounds, settle down. Don't watch this movie for the violence. There's not enough of it to satisfy you. No. But in the context of the movie, it really does stand out as brutal. Particularly in the context of the scenes before and after it, which are so genteel. It feels so brutal.
Yeah, but that's the thing that I really liked about the movie, and I think while I'll watch it more and more, and I'll even say this, past Devil's Backbone, and of course Pan's Labyrinth, this is my third favorite Guillermo Del Toro movie already. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really don't think it's going to even pass Devil's Backbone.
Right.
Like, that's substantially higher. And this movie just doesn't have enough meat, even if it's like subtextual meat, whatever, to it to really get to that point. But, like, I really like the tone that it consistently provides. Now, is it a tone that I want to revisit all the time and all this kind of stuff? I mean, maybe, actually, but I really appreciate how its tone is just so specifically a Spanish horror movie from, like I said, the 60s or something like that.
Before I give it my final rating, I'd like to preface it a little bit by putting it in context, this review. The best way I can describe this movie is, in reviewing it, it's sort of like listening to this really great album. It's a style of music that I don't particularly care for, but it's a really great album. The production values are great. I don't really have much to criticize about it. It's really good for what it is. It's just not for me. I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10, which is slightly above average. Hopefully, from this review, you're able to discern, this sounds like it's my kind of movie. If this is your kind of movie, it's really good, and you're going to give it an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And but it wasn't for me. It was just, I'd seen it before, and I get it was a throwback, so I don't really have anything to really knock against it. It didn't move me.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I noticed this, and I wanted to point out is, me and Nate are both writers, if you guys didn't know, and this is a non-existent script.
No,
it is a story that kind of just visually moves forward type of thing, but there aren't twists and turns. There aren't necessarily quote unquote engaging characters. There's no writing to it. It's like Indeed. Everything was put into all the other aspects. So that's a little bit maddening, because it's like, come on, put a little effort into your
So the work
story.
falls onto the cast to sort of make the characters something.
Yeah.
But this type of movie, no one's going to have a big personality. That's just part of it.
But like I said, and then the third act, some of the visuals, although being a big fan of Devil's Backbone, one of the big visuals of the very final act was like, dude, you're ripping yourself off
right
here. But whatever, that machinery was really cool, and that red clay that it was pulling up was really almost grotesque. That was the most blood we got, was the fucking clay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sticks with me, the whole beware of Crimson Peak. There's something I really like about a ghost story that has barely any ghosts in it. There's just something I really like about this movie. But anyway, I'm going to give it an 8 just because Devil's Backbone will get a 9 and Pan's Labyrinth gets a 10. So it's a number rating within the works of Guillermo Del Toro.
Excellent.
Crimson Peak, check it out. When will it be coming out? It's in our dollar theaters basically right now. Do we know when it has an actual release date?
You know what? I can find out in 2 seconds, and then we'll just edit out this part. The movie will be hitting DVD and Blu-ray February 9th. A couple of weeks before that point, it will be available on video on demand. No matter how you see it, if you're going to watch this movie, don't skimp. Watch it in the highest def you can watch it, because its strength, I think both of us would agree, its strength is the visual aspect.
Oh, totally. It's amazing.
It is a beautiful thing to look at. But just know what you're getting into, and you'll enjoy it a lot more.
Right on. Okay, and we will see you next time, guys, with reviews of Goosebumps, which I've watched, Nate will be watching very soon, and plenty of other good stuff here on Fright Flicks. See you later, guys.